Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 348, February the 20th, 2018, Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. And the good news, I'm not quite as angry as I was yesterday. You know, usually I do my research. I get pretty angry doing my research. I usually take a couple hours later when I do my videos, but yesterday, because I had a lot of things to do, I did my research and I was fuming mad. Did my video right afterwards. Not a good idea. Didn't control my emotions very well, did I? Although some of you like it when I do angry videos. Well, today I'm not so angry, but I've got a lot of good information, so let's go ahead and get right to it, shall we? Trump's popularity is now up to 47% in an aggregate of polls. 51% of Americans now approve of the tax cut, which is absolutely amazing because the amount of negative press for day after day after day after day, for him to have 51% approval in his tax rate, and some people haven't even gotten their taxes back yet. Some people have not even gotten their first check since the tax cuts went into effect. So just imagine a couple months from now where that number is going to be. It's probably going to be over 60%. Very well could be. Republicans in just 1 month have gone from 37% to 46% approval. That is, let's see, 37 to 46. That's 9 points, man. That's 9 points in 1 month. For your approval to go up 1 month for 9 points in 1 month, that is strong, my friends. We are winning, winning, winning. And I know you're not tired of it. I know Mr. Chopa's not tired of winning. I know Maura's not tired of winning, and Patty, and Peggy, and Gary, and Peter. I know none of you guys are tired of winning, are you? No, we're just getting started. 89% of Republicans and 19% of Democrats approve of the tax reform. And it wasn't even real tax reform. They tried to get tax reform and tax cuts. They weren't really able to get the tax reform to simplify the tax code the way that they wanted it. They got the tax cuts pretty much what they wanted, but they didn't quite get all the tax reform. That's coming. You can bet on that. And Trump's, after the midterms, you can bet that'll be on the agenda probably for next year to do the other half that they couldn't get done this time, because hopefully we'll have 60 senators. Or we'll have some Democrats who realize that that the tables have turned and they have to play ball, or they'll be voted out. Or maybe Mitch will change the rule and all we'll need is 50 votes. That's what he should do. And I think there'll be pressure on him to do that. It's just amazing when you look at the amount of negative propaganda that had been run on Trump, on the Republicans, on the tax bill for this past, 2.5 months or so since that debate raged. And with all the negative press that's still coming out, and with Mueller, and with all these things, to see the Republicans and Trump's numbers this high in the face of everything, and it really mirrors what we saw in the election when you look at the massive amount of effort that went against Trump, all that was done to defeat him, and he still won, and we won. That was a win not just for Trump, it was a win for all of us, because we're the ones who made that happen. And it's not just those of us who are the true believers that watching my videos or watching conservative media, libertarians, people out there like that. Trump couldn't win the election just with a small hardcore group like us. He had about 61 million votes, which means there's a lot of people who really are not people who follow politics maybe as closely as we do or follow the issues like we do, who are just regular folks, but it's sinking into them as well, or Trump could never have won. And we certainly could not see these numbers. These numbers do not represent his base. There's no way. His base is not 51%. The Republican base is not 46%. We know how many registered Republicans there are. There's a lot of independents and some Democrats showing up in these numbers. That's why I say we're winning, and we're going to keep on winning. Hold your heads up high, my friends. Know victory when you see it and appreciate it. And as I said, just a little victory is not what we're looking for. We're looking for total defeat of the enemy, and I think we know who the enemy is. Jay Johnson, the former Department of Homeland Security chief under Obama, was on MS-PMS this morning, and he said, Monday morning is what I would be talking about, and he said quote, Obama knew of Russian hacking early summer of 2016 and did nothing out of fear of taking sides. What is this? This is called spin. This is called cover your ass spin. That's what this is. First of all, notice the term he used. Oh, Obama knew about the Russian hacking. Well, Uncle Bob didn't just release a 13-page indictment or any report so far that's made the claim of Russian hacking. They refer to it, but he's never made any indictments on it because he knows he can't prove it. And this term of Russia hacking, they're just trying to bring this term back up. Russia hacking. This was nothing about Russian hacking. The indictments had nothing to do with hacking. It was about running Facebook ads and sponsoring protests. Nothing about hacking. So, again, they're trying to drop the Russian hacking buzzword, despite the fact that most people don't even believe it anymore, and they've never proven it. We'd like them to prove it. We're begging them to prove it, but they refuse. And to say that he did nothing out of fear of taking sides, then that means that he's a bald-faced liar, which he is anyway. Because don't you guys remember when everybody was talking about this, and Obama came out and made that statement about when Trump was talking about, well, the elections are rigged, the elections are rigged, and Obama came out and said, this idea that the elections are rigged is just completely ridiculous. So the elections can't be rigged. The elections are handled locally, and the federal government doesn't get involved, and blah, 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 blah. And these elections are totally great. There's nothing wrong, because at that time they thought that the rotten reverend was going to win. But we found out that Trump was right, and that the elections were rigged, but not by Russians. We know who rigged those elections, Mr. Obama. It was your political appointees at the DOJ and the FBI, and a lot of them are going to jail, or they're going to sing like birds to stay out of jail so they can put you in jail, along with your friends, Mr. Obama, and sending out your little henchman, Mr. Johnson, onto PMS this morning, and trying to drop the old Russia hacking line, hoping that will get some more play, is not going to work, especially considering the show he was on barely gets 500,000 viewers. No one's even watching, and no one cares, and fear out of taking sides. Boy, oh boy. These people are pathological liars. I mean, they're the type of liars that when you catch them with their hand in the cookie jar, crumbs all over their face, crumbs all over their clothes, their face red as a beet, they look at you and go, oh, no, I was actually just putting some cookies back in the cookie jar. I wasn't taking them out. I was putting them back in. And oh, I just happened to crush one, and then I wiped my mouth. That's what happened. That's how these people are. They'll never admit to their crimes. Never. Even when they're indicted for them and sitting in jail, they'll still be writing their memoirs about how they got framed. My friends, my sheriff has made it back into the national headlines again for the second time. If you remember, I mentioned this in the video back over the summer. My sheriff in my county here in Butler County, Southern Ohio, Richard K. Jones, he's a man. He's a real man. And he got so sick of the fact that one of our local communities here had been taken over by illegal immigrants that he began sending busloads of these people back to the Mexican border. And he tried to send the Obama administration a bill for it, which they would never pay, right? So he made national headline news back in the summer when he started going into certain areas of the county here and pulling these illegals out, putting them on buses and sending them to the Mexican border and demanding that Obama administration repay us for the cost of doing that. And so he made national headlines there. He made national headlines again today. Congratulations, Sheriff Jones. He was being interviewed, and he said basically, oh, well, we don't have that problem. Just as I told you, he said, because our schools are secure, because we have essentially a program here. We essentially deputize teachers or people that work within the school system to open carry. We even give them free classes. We give them free training. We work closely with them. Our schools are secure. Our schools are secure. And just like I told you, you know, folks, I live in one of the most Republican, most conservative voting districts in the country. Democrats don't even run in my county or in my district. They don't even run. It's 90-something% registered Republican. And I don't mean rhinos. I mean hardcore. I live in like kind of in a redneck county, USA, southern Ohio. And we also have the fourth highest open carry gun registration in the country. The fourth highest as far as percentage of people in the county that have open carry permits. I mean, you know, I live in a kind of a farming community, you know, pretty much redneck people, give you the shirt off their back, doing anything in the world for you. But if you cross them, they'll open up a 55-gallon drum of whoop ass on you right now. So fast it'll make your head spin. You do not want to mess around in the 8th District in Butler County in southern Ohio, my friends. If you're a criminal, they don't come here. They don't even come here. They don't even bother. They can just tell. You can just be in this community. So all these people walk around with guns, gun racks in their trucks, guns on their dash, guns on their hip, guns here, guns everywhere. It's a safe community to live in, and we're all armed. Yes, we are. And I do carry a very well sharpened number 2 pencil on me at all times. And the district directly north of me is Jim Jordan's district, and it's even more redneck than my district. So you don't want to mess around in this area, friends, if you're a criminal. You certainly don't. And if you're Antifa or communist or anything like that, this is not your place, friends. This place is the land of the brave and the home of the free, and it will remain. And we got a sheriff that kicks butt. Sheriff Richard K. Jones, making the national news again, making the national headlines, telling them how it is. He just laid it out straight for me. He said, look, if we know, we've done the studies. If something happens, like a school shooting, we know that the response time is about 5 minutes and 20 seconds, 5 minutes, 19 seconds. We've role-played it. We've done it. We've tried it out. We've done drills. We know it takes us 5 minutes and 19 seconds to get our officers on scene, just to get them there if someone reports a shooter. He said that the average shooting in a school lasts about 3 to 4 minutes is all. But in that time, they kill 15, 20 people or more. He said, we know that. So we took action to prevent it. And basically, we contacted all the schools in this district, in the county where he's sheriff, and said, hey, we're offering free firearms training to any teacher, and we will work with you for you to have open carry in your classrooms, in your schools, or conceal carry, either way you want it. We don't care, just as long as you're armed and can provide protection, because we can't get there in time. Essentially, they deputize these, they put them through a little law enforcement training, teach them about firearms, give them training and everything else, and essentially deputize them. So a lot of our teachers in our schools here are essentially deputized. They're carrying concealed, probably most of them concealed carry in the classroom and stuff, but you know, we're very, very secure here. I'm not worried about anything happening in our schools. And if you come here and try some of that crap in one of our schools, you might get a couple shots off, but believe me, brother, you're going down. Mike Cernovich, who's done some really good work, by the way, has done a story where he's stating that McCabe, he's got hard evidence that McCabe has altered the 302, and this has been commented by several people in the comment section. Moore mentioned it, a couple other people mentioned it, and I guess you're wondering why I haven't talked about it. I think we did talk about it about 2 weeks ago when it first surfaced, but now it was just a question. Now it's almost fairly solid evidence that, in fact, this is what happened, that McCabe apparently altered the 302s, specifically the ones regarding Michael Flynn. And also, this had something to do with the Peter Benstrokinus interview with Michael Flynn, where he also altered those 302s as well, and then destroyed the evidence of the alterations. Now, this gets pretty deep and goes in several different directions, so it's kind of hard to follow. But we had a story, and there's several different stories, but when you put them all together, this is what it adds up to. We have this story where we know that the judge, Contreras, was kicked off the case. There's only 2 people who could have kicked him off that Flynn case, and that would have been either this top judge, who's also the head judge of the FISA court, Collier, a woman, or the Supreme Court Justice, head of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. Only one of those 2 could have kicked this guy off that court. And they don't do that unless there's some really good reason for it. So a lot of people believe that the reason Contreras was kicked off Flynn's case, which is being prosecuted by Mueller for apparently lying or whatever, apparently they believe that he's one of the four, because he is a FISA court judge, and they believe he may be one of the four judges who signed the FISA warrant. Possibly even that he was the judge that signed the FISA warrant that allowed Flynn to be caught up in this net. And keep in mind, this was the call with Kislyak. And keep in mind that these warrants were issued, FISA warrants were issued based on fraudulent information. See, so there's a lot of problems. And so the story is that the IG Horowitz discovered this, and he went to either Sessions or Wray or Rosenstein, one of those, maybe all of them, and said, hey, you got to know about this. And then, of course, it got to Mueller. And keep in mind, it's also Horowitz that leaked or didn't leak, but provided the text from Strzok and Page. And he's done other things. So a lot of people believe that the reason that Wray was forced to fire McCabe and tell McCabe he had to go, because if you remember, McCabe was going to write it out. And then all of a sudden, one day, we hear that Wray has basically forced McCabe to leave. He fired him. And we heard about the big scene, and McCabe made a big scene, had to be escorted out by security, and started dropping F-bombs and accusing people of all kinds of things, and really went off the handle, went batshit crazy, as they say. And so apparently what appears has happened behind the scenes is Horowitz discovered this possibly changing of the 302s. He's probably got the originals. We also had the situation where Comey came out and said, when he was asked, that they did not believe that Flynn lied. And so they have multiple reasons to believe that something very shady was done by McCabe. And so at some point they believe that Horowitz went to Sessions, Rosenstein, or Wray directly and said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but look what I got. Boom. Your boy, McCabe, he's in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. At which point, all we hear is that Wray forced McCabe, fired him or whatever, and we never really got the reason why. This was suspected back then. And then, following that, we get the judge being forced off the Michael Flynn case. And then we find out now that it's likely he was one of the judges that issued the FISA warrant, possibly the one that caught Flynn with his call with the Russian ambassador Kislyak. Now, one other thing has recently happened that's really bombshell, and it appears that the new judge, whose name is Emmett Sullivan, who's famous for prosecuting government lawyers who engage in frame-ups, corrupt prosecutors, corrupt government prosecutors is what he's known for. He goes after corrupt government prosecutors, Uncle Bob. And apparently what he's done is, after Flynn had entered a guilty plea, and I'm understanding from listening to legal experts that this never happens. Never happens. But after Flynn issued his guilty plea, and then Judge Emmett Sullivan comes in, he tells Mueller that Mueller now has to present all exculpatory evidence. Well, why would he do that? He would only do that if he had been given information or knew that there was something done, and would likely involve those FISA, those 702s, 302s, I mean, those 302s being changed, or something being done that monkeyed with the notes from the call with Kislyak or what have you, or whether or not Flynn lied. There's something going on, because this Judge Sullivan has ordered Mueller to produce, via the evidence he used, which came from the FBI and the DOJ, these 302s, as well as other information that could be exculpatory evidence. In other words, evidence that could help the Mike Flynn case and exonerate him. So in response to that, Mueller was forced to withdraw the sentencing date for Michael Flynn. He didn't totally cancel it. He withdrew it for what's an automatic 90-day period, and then, of course, they can do another 90 days if they want, and they may need to. But it's looking more and more like, all the evidence is pointing to, from all these things, that this judge in the case, and others, possibly Christopher Wray, Attorney General Sessions, Rosenstein, via the Inspector General, have hard evidence and McCabe's firing being the proof, and what we see this judge doing being the proof, and comments that Sessions has made, which we're going to talk about, evidence that McCabe did falsify those 302s and destroy the evidence, and that the IG has that evidence. That is what it's looking like. And if that is true, my friends, and one more thing, if they find out that Mueller knew, about this, about what McCabe did and what he was using, that's why Judge Sullivan is ordering Mueller to produce the exculpatory evidence. He's going to look at those 302s. He's going to compare them to what he's probably gotten or has had access to view from the IG or from Attorney General Sessions or Rosenstein or someone. This judge has seen something. He has seen something which made him decide that he needs to see the exculpatory evidence from the prosecution side. And it was obviously damning enough that not only did Mueller say, okay, well, we'll postpone the sentencing for Michael Flynn, but we also want to get the court to agree that this can't be really public, that only the people can look at it as you, Judge, and the attorneys for Michael Flynn, and this can't be made public. This can't be released. It's got to stay, closed up. So Mueller does not want this getting out. He does not want it getting out. He wants it all handled there. So Mueller himself may have just gotten himself into quite a bit of trouble if it turns out that he knew about this and went on and tried to prosecute anyway. The walls are closing in on these criminals, folks. This is what you see happening. It's exactly what you see happening. There's definitely smoke here. There's a problem here. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm telling you, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind now, especially since we saw Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray, the FBI and with her director, fire McCabe, even though he stood by him up until that day. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we heard nothing. Just, oh, well, Christopher Ray has just forced McCabe to step down. He's essentially fired him. No real explanation why. Well, now we know why. It would take something pretty big to do that, for Ray to do that. And now we're getting an idea exactly what that was. And it has a lot to do with possibly McCabe altering these 302s. And now this judge who's overseen the case, who's taken over for the judge who was forced to step down because he probably was one of the judge that issued the FISA warrant, which ensnared Flynn, which was illegal. It was based on fraudulent information. It's fruit of the poisonous tree. And that's what this lawyer knows. Michael Flynn's going to walk, my friends. Those charges are going to be dropped. And it just might be Uncle Bob, the executioner, who's perp walked in front of the judge, along with McCabe. McCabe's going to jail. You can take if they could take betting odds on that in Vegas, I'd say put everything you got on it. I absolutely guarantee McCabe's going to jail. I can't say for anybody else 100%, but I absolutely guarantee he is. And probably Loretta Lynch, and probably a lot of those other people have cut deals. That's the only reason they didn't get taken down. You notice Comey's, what did they call him again? The little group. I forget what they call them now. The small group. Comey's small group. Every one of them guys have been fired or have resigned, but not Page, Ben Strokinus, or Priestep. They all have remained in place. And if you remember, what happened was Nunes interviewed Rybicki and Priestep. Right after he interviewed them, Rybicki resigned. Priestep went back to his job in counterintelligence, head of counterintelligence. Then Nunes released the Nunes memo. Then he had, by that time, had been given access to all these witnesses to interview Ben Strokinus, Page, or all of them. But he never did it. He never did it. Why? Why? Because he didn't need to. Because someone's already told him the whole story. And my guess is it's Mr. Priestep. And then they went to Ben Strokinus and Page and Orr and probably said, you know what? You guys are going to jail for a very long time. We got the goods on you. Of course, if you would like to cooperate, we could maybe work something out. And you haven't heard a peep out of any of them, but they're still at the FBI. Now they're probably sitting in an office with no access to anything. They're just there to be cool now that they've told their story. And they're going to be witnesses for the prosecution. What is the Inspector General's job? It's to protect the integrity of the Department of Justice and the FBI. These people have dirtied the image which he is sworn to protect. That's his job. Not to protect the people at the DOJ and political appointees, but to protect the institution itself of the FBI and the DOJ. And who were these people that we're talking about? They're career bureaucrats at the DOJ and the FBI. Ray, Priestep, Ben Strokinus, Page, they're all career DOJ FBI employees. They're not political appointees. It appears that if you're the IG and you want to preserve the integrity of the FBI and the DOJ, you get the career appointees who represent them, you get them cleaned up and get them as your witnesses to go after the political appointees which dirtied and tarnished these agencies. Horowitz wants to be able to say, hey, I have to defend my FBI and my DOJ. They're good folks. We had a few people that got manipulated by political appointees. And who would that be? Political appointees of the Obama administration. Obama himself, Lynch, Comey, Rice, Rhodes, all these people, political appointees who dirtied up Mr. Inspector General Horowitz's wonderful institution, which he represents, and his job to defend those institutions and to find the people who might dirty it up. He's going to be serving up heads. Watch and see. Russians spent a total of $311,000 total in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. $3,111 is what they spent in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin on their ads, and only $54 worth of those were actually, only $54 of the $3,111 was spent before the election. That's coming directly from the VP from Facebook. They've done a deep dig, and that's what they're saying, and they're sticking by it. And they're probably right. We know at the time as well that 91% of the media coverage was negative toward Trump. And we know that Clinton, her campaign, spent $81 million on Facebook ads. So there you have it. With 91% of media coverage of Trump being negative, Clinton spending $81 million on Facebook ads, and the Russians, who are targeted by the Mueller indictments, spent $3,111 in those three states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, but only $54 of it before the election. Jill Stein being interviewed, and she said that, well, you know, the media and the Democrats were the ones who meddled in the 2016 election. Coming from Jill Stein. Well, you know, Jill Stein was targeted by Mueller. Jill Stein was interviewed a couple times by Mueller, and they tried to go after her because she was at that dinner for Russia television in Russia with Michael Flynn sitting at the same table. And of course, it was a celebration of the 1-year anniversary of RT or 10-year anniversary of RT or whatever. And both RT had supported Jill Stein or given her a lot of interview time when none of the networks or cable media or anything else was paying attention to Jill Stein. RT Television was actually giving her some airtime, and they also covered this other Democratic debate or third-party debate or something that none of the major media covered. RT did cover it. I do remember it quite well. So that's why Jill Stein was targeted. And it's funny, she's out today saying, well, you know, the media and the Democrats were the real meddlers in 2016. Very, very true. Uncle Bob hasn't figured that out yet. He must be a dumbass. That's the only clue I can come to. Conclusion. Trump's motorcade press van drivers have all been replaced after a gun was found in one of the driver's bags by the Secret Service. The driver is being questioned by the Secret Service and the local county sheriff. This is down near Mar-a-Lago. Now, the way this works is the press will lease vans for the press corps. And they lease these vans, and then the company that leases the vans hires drivers to drive these vans, to drive the press around so they can follow the president's motorcade and go to wherever he goes and do media stuff. So these individuals are privately hired by another company to drive these media vans, but they found one of these guys with a weapon in his one of his bags, and they and the Secret Service, of course, demanded this company fire every one of these drivers and replace them. Needless to say, the Secret Service did their job. Not really sure what this is telling us, but I think you guys can all get a clue of exactly what this is telling us. Here you go. You're going to like this story. Big league politics. Breaking news. The rotten Reverend Clinton, crooked Hillary, and the DNC promoted the Steele dossier in a press release. Then they scrubbed it from the internet. Basically, I looked at it. Clinton thought they scrubbed it, but once it's on the internet, it's never scrubbed. No matter who you pay and how much you pay, it's always there. So an investigative reporter who was working for Big League Politics, investigator, found this. He found it, and I read it. I looked at it. It is a press release, and it's the entire Michael Isikoff story with Hillary and the Hillary campaign heading on it. Her picture in the Hillary campaign. So they actually were planning on dropping this as a press release, and they did. But once they dropped it as a press release, for some reason they pulled it back, canceled it, and then they tried to scrub it from the entire internet. Probably right after Hillary lost, will be my guess. And all the stuff about the dossier came out. But it talks about everything that's part of the deep state coup. It basically uses the Michael Isikoff article about the Russians and Trump and Carter Page and Manafort and Trump and all this stuff. It's right there. I read it. It's unbelievable. I imagine a lot of people saw it back in September when it was released, but no one really remembered it until this investigator found it and got it and published it. And then, of course, Big League Politics, one of the reporters got onto it, and he published the story, and they've got it, and you can see it. Go to Big League Politics, read the story, and you can read it for yourself. You can see the actual press release and read it for yourself. It's absolutely bombshell. But the thing that's bombshell about it is the date on the press release. It is September the 23rd. September 23rd. Which means that the rotten Reverend Clinton said she didn't know anything about it until after the BuzzFeed release, other than the fact that they paid for some opposition research. She really didn't know much other than that. Oh, but this lays out everything in the press release, my friends. Everything that's in all these reports about Carter Page, the FISA warrants, everything that's in the FISA warrants is in this damn press release. They could have taken that press release, and it looks exactly like what Nunes had in his memo that they used to go to the FISA court. And it's right there in Hillary Clinton's press release from September the 23rd of 2016. That means that Donna Brazile was lying. The Rotten Reverend was lying. John Podesta was lying. Robbie Mook was lying. Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz was really lying, because she said she didn't know anything about it. They had to all know about it. They had to all know about it. It came out as a freaking press release. And then they tried to kill it. They tried to scrub it. You can't scrub the internet, my friends. That's why you should never put any dirty pics up there. Don't put anything on the internet that you don't want someone to look at a year later, 10 years later, or 50 years later. Believe me, it never goes away once it's on the internet. Be careful.